Oh, wow, we're at,
Ready?
yeah.
Well, we sold it.
All right, everybody. We will go ahead and call to order the City of Lake Elmo Planning Commission meeting for April 8th, 2024. First item is to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Just before we jump to the agenda, I want to introduce and welcome our newest commissioner, Commissioner Dean.
Tristan.
No.
All right, yeah, I'm Sam Dean. Excited to be here with you all and support the community and work with the City of Lake Elmo.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome, Sam.
Thank you.
All right, second item for this evening is to approve this evening's agenda, which includes approval of our minutes, a single public hearing, as well as some communication updates.
Move to approve the agenda for April 8th, 2024.
I second.
Motion by Commissioner Raycamp, seconded by Commissioner Bolig to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Third item then is to approve the minutes from our previous meeting of March 25th, 2024. Any edits, alterations, comments? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve the minutes from last session.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Geffrey, seconded by Commissioner Raycamp to approve the minutes of March 25th, 2024. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. At this point, we will move to item 4, which is a public hearing. This is the PF zoning district text amendment. We'll hear from city staff before opening the public hearing.
All right, good evening, members of the Planning Commission. We're going to talk a little bit about the Public Facilities District here and some text amendments that staff are proposing after a review of the city's ordinance. So as a little bit of background to you, this is a city-initiated text amendment, so we're not on a strict schedule, but we have had an opportunity through a few different projects to review the Public Facilities Zoning District and think about some of the standards that we're seeing in there in the context of how they'll work with some of these different projects that are kind of in the pipeline. So there are a number of different types of facilities that are regulated within or allowed within the Public Facilities District. This includes city facilities, school facilities, and religious institutions. So these are all semi-public or public uses in the district. There are some standards that we've identified which present limitations that don't seem to be necessary for the city and its own facilities, along with expected for other similar types of facilities. And so we'll talk a little bit about each of the changes that are proposed in more detail. Just wanted to present to you the zoning map that the city has. The public facilities, that is that light green zoning district. It comprises a very large area, that's Lake Elmo Park Reserve. There's also city parks that are zoned with this public facilities district that are very large. I would say relative to some other parcels. Sunfish Lake is a good example of that. And then you've got different institutional uses that are not technically the city. The Stillwater schools, other area school districts do have sites with the PF zoning districts. And you've also got some religious institutions on the north side of the city primarily that are also zoned PF. So that's just a little bit of a summary. The public facility zoning district is unique in one sense because it's used both within and outside of the MUSA. So there's not a ton of zoning districts you have that have that kind of distinguishing factor. So a little bit quickly about the purpose of this district. It's up on the screen. It's really intended to provide general performance standards for public and semi-public uses, so it's a pretty specific purpose. And there is some language about maintenance and preservation of the established rural character of the city, so that there is that piece as well. All right, so I just want to provide a quick summary before I dive into each code revision. First, we're proposing to allow by right as a permitted use, public parks, playgrounds, and open space. This would not restrict the city from having to apply to a conditional use permit to itself, which is actually a thing that cities do have to do when uses are conditional. It would remove the limitation, there's a very specific limitation on wastewater generation that seems to be outdated and not kind of with the current way that the city regulates land uses. It would remove there's a maximum parcel size limit. Usually we see minimums. In this case, we have a maximum of 20 acres, which is pretty restrictive for all of the uses that we've discussed. We'd also establish a lot coverage for any lot that would be over 20 acres. And lastly, update a reference to architectural standards. All right, so with the uses, this is exactly what it would look like in your ordinance. The red underlined text is what would be added. The strike through text is what would be deleted. So we're simply adding permitted uses to the zoning district and limiting those to city uses on city property. So it says, following public uses are permitted on city property. So that would be parks and playgrounds, indoor and outdoor athletic facilities, and public open spaces or stormwater ponds. So the city could establish or expand any of those types of uses without needing to get a special approval. The next change is that limitation for wastewater generation. So this is found in all of the uses within the PF zoning district that are conditional. So for religious institutions, facilities for local, state, county government, libraries, etc. They all have this limitation of 3 SAC units per 3.5 acres or 235 gallons per day per net acre of land. This is something that we've researched as planning staff and went back to the 1980s or early 90s for the earliest reference of this particular provision in the city's ordinance. This used to be actually something that was used as well for commercial uses, which has since been removed for those business park and commercial uses. So it doesn't really seem like it's going to benefit the community to have this limiting public uses when it's not even used for limiting commercial uses. And if we're trying to limit the intensity of land uses, which is really what a provision like this does, because the estimates are based on gross floor area, the best way to do that is through lot coverage and setbacks. That really helps us to provide a good way to require intensity be located on a site. This next slide is just simply showing you that we're removing the maximum parcel area. We're actually not proposing to replace this with the new standard because public facilities come with needs of all shapes and sizes in terms of land. You might have a water tower on a very small parcel, or you might have much larger use on a much larger parcel. Okay, so we have proposed a new impervious surface limit or a maximum for parcels that are larger than 20 acres. The 32% was simply continuing that pattern here that you'll see on the chart. For parcels between 5 and 10, they're at 38, between 10 and 20 at 35, and then we go over 20 and they're subject to 32%. I would note to you that there are a number of public facilities parcels that are in the shoreline district, and in those cases, we're going to take the more restrictive impervious surface maximum. Lastly, the performance standards. The code actually has a reference in it that's really difficult to find. It's to the 2000 to 2010 Lake Elmo Comprehensive Plan. That resource is not available online. First and foremost, it's difficult to really locate actually in the time that we've spent looking for it. And so instead of trying to waste time doing that, we figured this is something that we can update to the existing design standards manual. And we have a section in here for commercial buildings that will be a good cross-reference because they're similar in nature in terms of the design. There are specific materials that are mentioned in the public facilities district. We're not proposing to change those things, simply the way that buildings are designed is guided well by that document, the guidance standards manual. So that's it. The findings that the planning commission will have to make in order to approve this, recommend approval of this amendment are that it's consistent with the public facilities district's intent and that it's also consistent with the city's comp plan. So we have a public hearing notice which was put in the local newspaper. We have not received any written or verbal comments to date as staff. I think we do have one person in the audience that is looking to provide you with some comments. So this takes me to my staff recommendation, which is a motion to recommend approval of the ordinance amendments. So with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you much. Questions for city staff?
Mr. First, could you just kind of give me a real-world example of an indoor athletic facility on a PF zoning district? I mean, I think of indoor athletic facility, I think of like a Kokora volleyball. Now, would that indoor athletic, if you could give me an example, and then
That's-
it would be owned by the city or the county or something like that, or?
Yeah, so when we were talking about that as staff, we are kind of trying to envision what are the different uses that the city might want to allow or have controlled on its own sites. And so that was one of them. I'm gonna go back up to that so we can reference it. So it would be similar to a Kokoro type use. If there were ever a sports complex that the city wanted to build on its own property, that might be indoor or outdoor, might be something that it would look to do.
So could that be privately owned then, or would it be, public?
If it's city property, then the city can decide. If theoretically, if the city.
Land lease, I get through that.
Technically, it would have to be permitted by the city, but yes,
Yeah.
it could be something that's private.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any additional questions?
This is just to clean up. There's nothing coming forward that we might have to think about. This is just to clean up the text. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different things that we've talked about project-wise as staff, but this is not associated with any one application in particular. This is seen as a way to clean the ordinance up while, we have a moment before some other projects may come in. So it could be city expansion of parklands, it could be religious institutions, it could be any of these uses that are going to come in with some of these proposals.
Can you double click on the removal of the wastewater generation? I think it was under religious institutions and so stuff like that. So is this saying there would be no septic, like it's all within MUSA, so it would have to be connected to city?
So this one was difficult when we first encountered this with one of the projects, this was kind of difficult to interpret like what it's trying to get at. And particularly because we have properties that are both in and outside of the MUSA. So we looked at it with basically both lenses because we can use a SAC determination from the Met Council to figure out how many SAC units that they would have as whatever the use is proposed to be. So we would use that, or we can look at the gallons per day on a septic system. And with that, one of the things that we would do is also kind of look at Met Council information because that's just the best apples to apples way to go about enforcing this particular provision. But I would say it's a pretty inelegant way to regulate the intensity of a land use if at the end of the day, the gross floor area of a building is what this is trying to control, then maybe we should be using a lot coverage maximum, which is far easier to interpret with a lot less room for gray area in the interpretation.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Perfect. Thank you much. To the commissioners, this is a public hearing, so we'll need a motion to open.
I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bullock, second by Commissioner Breeze to open the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. The public hearing is now open at 7:14 PM. And then as a reminder, as public hearings and as well for our new commissioner, Bill, I've got your paper here, so we call up everybody who fills out and submits these papers. They have up to 6 minutes to talk and speak. It's their opportunity to talk at us, kind of through us. It's not a Q&A or a back and forth or anything like that. If there are kind of rhetorical questions that come up, we can take that back as commissioners after we close the public hearing. So, Bill, if you want to come up, and if you don't mind just repeating name and address for the record. And I'll start a timer there. As we get down to a minute, I'll give you a 1 minute if you're going to take that long, and catch up from there.
Great. I appreciate that. Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Bill Bartalik. I'm with Rock Point Church. I'm an elder with the church, and I wasn't aware that I was going to be speaking this evening, so I'll keep my comments very brief. We've had a chance to review the edits, and I just wanted to reinforce and endorse them as proposed. And that's the extent of my comments. We support them entirely, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay?
Much appreciated.
Any questions for me?
All good? Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Very good, thank you.
Perfect. And with that, and with nobody else in the audience, we'll go back to the commissioners. We will need a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Stiles, seconded by Commissioner Jeffrey to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. The public hearing is now closed at 7:16 PM. At this point, we'll go back to the commissioners. In our packet, there is a recommended motion. You mind pulling that back up on the screen? Thank you. Perfect, thank you.
Motion to recommend approval of zoning text amendments to the PF Public and Quasi-Public Open Space Zoning District as proposed by city staff.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jeffrey, seconded by Commissioner Stile to recommend approval. Go to discussion. Commissioner Jeffrey, do you want to kick off?
Sure. I like the idea of cleaning things up, moving along with the times. Appreciate staff always looking back into these sorts of things and keeping pace with all the new developing that's going on. These seem pretty straightforward. They seem less restrictive, and I'm always for less restriction. So, and I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that, so.
Thank you, Mitch. Commissioner Stile, anything to add?
Pretty open and shut. I mean, it moves us along and, yeah, it's, makes sense. So, no other comments on that.
Thank you. Open up to the rest. Anybody have any additional comments?
I appreciate city staff going back and looking through this and revising it so that it's actually interpretable and enforceable. Seeing things that are based off the 2000 to 2010 comprehensive plan that no one can even find. It makes sense that we should change things like that, so. Thank you for your work on this, Mr. First, and the rest of staff.
Anything else? All right, again, motion on the table is to recommend approval of the zoning text amendments to the PF Public and Quasi-Public Open Space Zoning District as proposed by city staff. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. And item 4A is now complete. Do we have a date from when this one will go to city council?
May 7th.
May 7th. Thank you. And Bill, you're welcome to take off if you'd like, or?
Yeah, the brackets are about to be closed. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night, appreciate it. All right, moving along then, we have no new or unfinished business as part of 5. 6, communication updates, back to city staff.
Yeah, at the April 2nd City Council meeting, City Council approved Royal Golf 6th Edition Final Plat and PUD. That is the final phase of Royal Golf. They also approved the Peanut Poppies Ranch minor subdivision and easement vacation. And then moving on to upcoming meetings, April 22nd and May 13th. We have items on both agendas. And then I do want to note, May 13th is your annual Planning Commission training.
Thank you much. Easy. With that, we have gotten to the end of our agenda for this evening. As always, appreciate everybody for coming out and city staff for hanging out late through the day and getting this all prepared. And again, welcome to Commissioner Dean to the Planning Commission. With that, I hope everybody has a good evening, and we will see you next time. We will close the commission meeting at 7:20 p.m. Thank you all.